It is Victory Tuesday. Michigan got the 33-7 win against Northwestern. We'll, of course, talk a little bit about that. There's another topic that we've got to get into, but with it being Michigan State week, everything is on the table. It is a giant, giant week. So, of course, we bring in, as always, the Mackey Award-winning tight end, Jake Butt, who certainly is he was already Mr. Michigan, but he's really, as you can see, becoming more and more Mr. Michigan. He's got the hat, he's got the hoodie, he's got the helmet back there, the picture, he's got the jersey. What you don't know is he's got like a Michigan, some pants going on, some Michigan footies. He's got it all going. Jake, welcome. let's do this,
here, man. We got a lot to talk about. I mean, we were touching on a little bit in the pregame show. I'm itching. Let's get right into it, Isaiah.
Yeah, we have to. So first, before we get into what we talked about in the pregame show, in which we both got each other all kinds of riled up, let's talk about the Northwestern game a little bit. When you look at this game, what are your biggest takeaways? What are the things that you look at for better, for worse? What are the things that come front of mind for you?
I mean, so we continue to emphasize and play into the things like our strengths, like the running backs. I think we have the best 1-2 punch in the country. Having 200-yard rushers, those guys are just running their asses off. They're making plays. I love the Hassan Haskins run where you have pretty much the entire offense just push the pile. And normally the running back just falls down, but Hassan even breaks out, stumbles, and almost kept his balance to make that into a touchdown. Just a really impressive play. But of course, we talk about the O-line and how impressive that they've been, but I really want to highlight the tight ends, Eric All and Shoemaker. Those guys are just playing their asses off. They're blocking really, really well. Of course, they got involved a little bit more in the pass game this week, but a couple of those runs, you're just seeing them fill in on linebackers, stick them in their chin, drive and finish, 10, 15 yards down the field with their defender in hand. It's extremely impressive. And I really want to highlight that, of course, being a former tight end. Defense, I mean, listen, the defense is playing really, really good ball. There's a couple times throughout the game, and we saw it a little bit throughout the season too, where it's going to be important as we play better offenses that they clean up. There's just maybe a lack of focus or maybe eye discipline, whatever it is, where we're giving up that big, long run on the touchdown. You got to know the whole picture, the big picture on your defense. I don't know who it was at linebacker, but he filled on the wrong side of the offensive line. His help was back to his right, and he filled on the right. That left the left side of the defense exposed, and it ended up being a touchdown. So it's you can always clean these things up when you win big like this, but the eye discipline and just making sure that we can kind of just minimize those big plays where teams are able to capitalize and get points on us. I think we could take another step and be even better. But overall, this is exactly what you wanted to see out of Michigan this week against Northwestern. And of course, it's going to give us that much more confidence going into a massive, massive game against Michigan State this weekend.
Now, obviously, this game wasn't without controversy in the sense that we emerged from this game. I feel like for multiple reasons, I feel like fans are certainly not very hype about Michigan, which is kind of weird for a 7-0 team about to go into a rivalry game. Number 6 versus number 8, big noon kickoff and college game day are going to be there. And yet it kind of, in the words of Walter in the Big Lebowski, they're being very undued. Jake, they're not being, whether it's from that defensive breakdown, there certainly was a lot of like, well, RIP our defense. Kenneth Walker is going to have a field day on us, or, this feeling like they're not going to be able to run the ball. But the biggest controversy, and I've been talking about it ad nauseum at this point, is this weird deal when it comes to Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy. McCarthy's legend's growing, and it's fair that it is, right? Because you're seeing him have, like, it started in week 1, that cross body throw to Dalen Baldwin, hitting him in stride against Wisconsin. Then you had this, had both his run as well as the throw under pressure to Carter Seltzer that got called back. But nonetheless, there seems to be this weird notion that, number one, the coaches don't know what they're doing. Number two, that if JJ McCarthy was in, the offense would look worlds different. And keeping in mind that Michigan doesn't have Ronnie Bell. Number three, if he came in, it's just suddenly, it just looks, I mean, that's basically number two. It looks different than what it does under Cade, but that he would just come in and thrive. I've been saying he's still a guy who's under development. He's still in development. Cade McNamara won the starting job fair and square. People off the record have told me, yeah, it's Cade. What are you seeing from Cade McNamara? What are your thoughts about all of this?
I'm going to preface this by saying, Michigan fans, I love you. You know I love you. You know I love you. But you said weird notion. It's not a weird notion. This has been going on for years, since going back to my playing day. Guys, Cade is your quarterback of your undefeated, top-ranked Michigan offense, the top-ranked Michigan team. We can't, you guys, Michigan fans, you guys sound like an echo chamber right now. We sound like a bunch of kids. And why are we creating conflict when there isn't conflict to be had? Why are we arguing amongst ourselves, saying, oh, we need this guy to come in, he'll solve all of our problems? This offense is playing damn good football, okay? Cade's going in there and he's making good throws. And we can talk about the deep balls down the field, all right? You guys see an incomplete pass, and y'all just bounce off each other. Well, JJ would have completed that. I actually have another point of view. I think that those balls were actually pretty damn well thrown. I think our receivers need to run under the ball. You look at the NFL. I played with Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders isn't running down to jump 5 yards early and high point the ball. He's running underneath that ball with late hands to catch it, and we didn't even see that. All those deep balls down the pipe in the Northwestern game, the receiver pulled up early, jumped, and tried to high point, and the ball sailed way over his head. Let's look at it from a different perspective, from an analytical eye, rather than saying this just echo chamber of, we need JJ McCarthy. Now, listen, JJ is really talented. JJ is going to have his day. Okay. JJ has shown a lot of great things, but Cade has shown a lot of great things too. Cade is the leader of this team and the leader of this offense, and he has led us to an undefeated season. He's done everything you would want from a quarterback up to this point. We're going into Michigan State week, undefeated, top ranked, and we're sitting here saying, and it's okay to want more. I want more always. That's great. But why are we creating division within our own program? It's really pissing me off at this point. Guys, support your quarterback, support your team, especially when we're undefeated, especially when we're top ranked. All right. Cade has done plenty of good things that I don't see highlighted by anybody. It's only the negatives. It's only calling for JJ McCarthy. Guys, stop. Start looking at it from a different perspective and saying, maybe, you know what, maybe Cade actually is doing some things. Maybe Cade actually is a really, really good leader. I saw a video today on Twitter about Jordan Palmer, the QB guru, the QB whisperer. He talked about Cade McNamara coming in 6th grade, and his dad wanted him to come in, and he said, hey, Cade, we're going to do a 3-day camp with you. We're going to bring in Cade to your camp, Jordan Palmer, for 3 days private training. And Jordan Palmer's like, nah, man, like, I think you should find somebody out there in Nevada, closer to home, do that. And he's like, no, listen, my son's different. Went out there, did private training with Palmer. 3 days, Jordan Palmer said, we need you to do this, this, and this. Like, we'll revisit in a month or two. Cade come back in a month or two, and Cade had worked on every single thing that coaching staff, or that Jordan Palmer had told him to do. He had completely changed his game around and was hungry for more. That's the kind of guy you want leading your offense, and that's the kind of guy Cade is. He's only solidified that throughout his career. And let's stop bashing these coaches. They're 7-0. Okay, this program has clearly taken a step forward. Okay, like they know what they're doing. I trust them. And if they see that out of Cade McNamara and they believe that's going to be the guy that's going to lead our offense to victory, then let's learn to support them and create a positive environment around our team, guys. Like, what kind of recruit's going to want to come? What kind of quarterback wants to come play for Michigan when all he's going to do is get bashed the moment a single mistake gets made? It's football. It's hard. All right, so I kind of went off there a little bit. I'm starting to sweat, but guys, please, Cade's playing great football. His offense is playing great football. Let's support first.
I think the big thing is what people want to see, and that was the thing when Josh Gaddis came in, this idea that Michigan was going to get away from the style of play that it is using to win games now, which is running the football primarily. They want to see more of a high-flying passing offense. Michigan isn't doing that. I think it's just a misnomer, the idea that if JJ McCarthy comes in, suddenly the offense is going to change. I think that the plan is certainly in the next year or two, they will shift to that. but you've got to get through the development aspect. You don't know, not saying you, Jake, but the people out there, you don't know when in practice if they're bringing pressure. Maybe, maybe JJ makes some of those plays. Maybe he throws interceptions half the time. Maybe it's there's a lot of things that go into it. And Jake, you can speak a little bit to how that goes behind the scenes, because you've been in practices. You've seen how these coaches make decisions of who's going to earn starting jobs and who's not. How much do you feel like we don't see behind the scenes in practice that make it so coaches can make these decisions? And with that in mind, what is it about a quarterback? There's a lot I know that we don't know, because a lot of people look at quarterbacks and say, are they completing passes? Yes, then they're great. No, then they're bad. But there's certainly a lot more that goes into it, like making the right reads and being able to recognize the defense and things of that nature. What do you see as well from Cade that maybe tells you that this is the right person to have at the right time?
Your voice really just nourished me, and it calmed me down a little bit. I was legitimately, I had eyebrow and nose sweat going. Your voice, I appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, good. Well, now listen, I think what you said is really, really important. Is practice is just a rehearsal for the game, and no fans are seeing practice, and you get little sound bites throughout the week in the media, but nobody's revealing any big time information. So there's a comfortability that comes with practice, and there's a comfortability that comes with the body of work. So it's not just practice, it's everything that Cade's done, even going back to last year when he finally came in and won the Rutgers game for us, when that decision was made and what he was able to do down the stretch. So there's a comfortability with Cade that, listen, we have a good team around us, and Cade's going to go in there and do the things that are asked of him and not make the big mistake. Because, just as quick as you could want, a switch to be made, who knows what happens when that switch gets made? Maybe in practice, just like you said, Isaiah, maybe there's some mistakes being made, and I don't know. I think JJ is developing, but I think what they're seeing in practice is enough to have a level of comfortability with Cade that says he's going to give us the best chance to win. I mean, guys, do you not think Jim Harbaugh wants to win? I can tell you for certain there's nobody that wants to win for Michigan more than Jim Harbaugh. He would be willing to die to see Michigan win. So I promise you, he's not going out there and making any rash decisions. He's making the decision that he believes is best to win. And frankly, guys, he probably knows more about football than most of you, including me, including beat writers, including your favorite sports personality. Jim Harbaugh has lived it. He's played it.
Wait.
He's coached it.
He doesn't know more than Go Maze Blue 414396432. That dude watches every game.
You're right.
Watching every game since 2003.
And that guy plays Madden 5 times a week, so he knows and understands football. But now, and you touched on it, quarterback position is so much more than can you throw a deep ball, right? I've played with a lot of quarterbacks that can throw the ball 70 yards, and I've played with some quarterbacks that maybe don't have the most arm talent, but they understand defenses. They understand where the blitz is coming from and how to shift offensive line protections. They understand how to call a play in the huddle. And Jim's offense is very complicated. It's not, we're not Ohio State, or we're not Indiana, who's, calling plays, from a cardboard. Like, Jim's offense is challenging. There's verbiage, there's audibles, there's multiple play calls that you have to adjust. And there's a big part of that is a quarterback getting everybody lined up in the right position. And that's challenging for a freshman to come in and be able to grasp it and handle it all. Whereas Cade he's a veteran guy. He's been around it. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on pre-snap that puts your collective offense in a position to succeed. And I think that's one of Cade's best attributes is his mind and his leadership. He's putting all 11 guys in the best position to succeed. And if you need to have an entire unit on the same page in order to be successful. And I think Cade, that's what the coaches see right now. It's kind of what I believe that they see, is that Cade's, gelling the offense and giving us collectively as a team, as an offense, as a unit, everybody the best chance to go down and score points.
And you actually bring up something really, really important there, the pre-snap thing. And I noticed multiple times in this past game, guys getting lined up wrong, and Cade literally screaming at guys to get them in the right place at the right time, especially knowing that, hey, we need to hike the ball. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of smarts from him. You wouldn't have any interceptions on the year if it wasn't for if Nebraska would have if they would have thrown the flag against Nebraska, or even, I mean, they could have thrown the flag against Michigan for a false start, certainly on that one play. But again, the headiness, recognizing, look, someone's crossing the line. Let's hike the ball. I got a free play. This is exactly what Michigan wants, and it's you can see if you're looking at it from an unbiased perspective, and certainly like that. I know that people probably don't feel like that's where we're coming from, but we are coming from an unbiased perspective when it comes to this. It's not like we have special ties to Cade McNamara that make us want to defend him particularly. It's not like he bought me this hoodie. He did buy me this hoodie, but no, I'm just kidding. He did not buy me this hoodie. But if you can actually take a look at what he's doing in those lights, you can see where Matt Weiss, when he said he has the wiles of a wily 10-year NFL vet, you can see that. It's rare that you see college quarterbacks recognize, all right, they're offsides, hike the ball right now so we can get a free play. It's very rare that you see that in the college game.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears. We've only got
you said one more thing, man.
Absolutely.
I just the pre-snap stuff. You may think it's important, you may think it's not. We can go back to my senior year in the game against Colorado. Okay, that game started off really, really bad for us. And one of the big plays was when the nickel blitzed off the slot and smacked Wilton in his mouth, and it was a fumble recovered by Colorado for a touchdown. Now, if you're not seeing the big picture, you miss this. We have a receiver over the slot and the nickel stacked on top of him, okay? Well, you have two high safeties. This safety starts to roll and stack behind him. This backside safety rolls to the middle of the field. Well, why do you have two guys over one person? That's not going to happen. It's because this guy is blitzing and this guy is going to take our receiver man to man. So if you're not seeing the big picture, you're not able to tell the O-line, hey, the blitz coming from out there. The blitz is coming from out there. We miss the blitz. That slot comes smoking off the edge free, smacks Wilton in the mouth, fumble, touchdown for Colorado. It could have ended really, really bad. So that's the kind of thing that fans don't see. And you need to recognize that, like you said, Cade is getting guys lined up pre-snap. That is so important. So that's what I'm going to end on there. We can move on. We got a lot more to talk about, but it's an important part of the game.
Yeah, I just felt like, I feel like every video that I've made or podcast that I've done in the last however long has been devoted to this topic, but needed to get your expertise on it because we certainly see things in the same light essentially as the coaches do. So just trying to highlight the reasoning essentially for Cade McNamara is the starting quarterback. Why is he the starting quarterback? Here is why. And I understand you want more people. You're eventually going to get JJ McCarthy. That is eventually going to happen. But for the moment, it is not. So I'm just trying to manage your expectations as to what's going to happen. Because if you're sitting there clamoring and you're not enjoying what's actually happening, where's the fun in that is kind of the way that I look at it. All right. So let's talk about one thing that happened against Northwestern. It's certainly going to happen. It's happened all year. It's certainly going to happen against Michigan State. I asked Jim Harbaugh about it yesterday. Aiden Hutchinson is getting held on every single play now. And I asked Jim, like, what do you say to him? Like, do you bring it up to the league office? It got me riled up yesterday on the podcast because I was just thinking, it's like you're essentially tying an arm behind your back. Yeah. When you're not getting those holding calls, at least one every now and again. You need one every now and again. Yeah. But if a team's going to essentially cheat to neutralize the best player on your other team, then that just sucks. Yeah. To put it, put it lightly. But what are you seeing from Aiden and how he's handling it in the games, and how much do you think that's going to play a factor maybe in a game like Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, now listen, your refs are gonna miss calls, but some of the calls that were missed, and it wasn't just Aiden, that defensive pass interference down the sideline, where their receiver literally took us and pulled him, and it was called a DPI, defensive pass interference. That's just absolutely egregious. I don't know how you missed that. Now, a guy like Aiden, you're going to miss, you got one ref kind of trying to watch the whole O-line and trying to look for holding. So you're going to miss some here and there, but it's blatant because the game feels so slow for a guy like Aiden. Like he's an NFL player that happens to still be playing in college, and not just an NFL player. He's going to be a damn good NFL player, and he's going against college guys. So it'd be obvious that that'd be the place you kind of your eyes would drift as a ref to make sure that we're playing a fair game. But it sucks because he's wreaking havoc. There's a couple of times where he's getting held and he still is able to stick a hand out, and it's affecting the throw, and it was caused some throws to fall short and flutter and be off target from the Northwestern quarterback. But what you really want to do is get Aiden, his face mask under that quarterback's chin. You want him to deliver some hits and make sure that quarterback is really sore coming out of halftime and really sore going into the fourth quarter. Like there's a big difference to be said about that. So he continues to dominate. And listen, it's Michigan State week, guys. We know what to expect. If we're going to expect a clean game or refs to be in our favor this week, let's not kid ourselves. That's not the way the state game goes. Things always happen when we play state, and usually they don't exactly go in our favor. So we're going to have to overcome adversity this week. But Aiden still is affecting the game, holding or not. Getting a 10-yard penalty will really help us, though. So I hope they start to recognize that.
Now, you mentioned the DJ Turner penalty. I do want to ask before we move very briefly on to Michigan State. What are you seeing from the corners? Because that's another weird point of contention that I've had is there's been a lot of people coming at me in my mentions saying the corners have been awful. I don't think they've been awful. I think I've been saying they've been good, not great, but good. Certainly felt like they took a step forward against Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
I understand Northwestern has not been world beaters, but Helinski's thrown for a lot of yards the 2 weeks previous. They've got several receivers that certainly are outperforming what we've seen from Michigan in the sense not only in the yardage, but they seem to find ways to get open more than Michigan's receivers have as of late. But to me, I think this is a group that certainly is going to look better because you have to imagine Michigan State's going to try the same strategy they did last year of like try to get those guys in one-on-one matchups and then try to throw 50-50 balls in a lot of cases when they're not going to Kenneth Walker. How much do you feel the same as last year? Do you feel more confident, less confident? What are you thinking when it comes to the secondary as a whole, but particularly the cornerbacks?
I am so much more confident in our defense this year, in our corners, in our back end. Last year, we were putting guys on an island. Okay, we were running a defense which is essentially cover one and cover zero. There was no sprinkled in zone. So when teams saw one high, they knew it was one high man. They can abuse you when they know that to be the case. All right. Now we were able to run it my senior year, but we also had 11 all 11 dudes are in Big Ten honors. We have Jordan, we had NFL players all over our defense. So it's apples to oranges. I think these guys have taken a huge stride this year. You look at DJ Turner, the interception he had. We can point out the negatives, but there's no emphasis on the positive. That's a hell of a play. That's a hell of a heads up play to make that. And then, go down there and return it and get some yards after the catch. Now, just to say our corners aren't playing good is such a general statement that it has no basis to stand on. Defense is a collective whole. Okay. Sometimes the corners are put in a position because we're blitzing and maybe the blitz isn't getting home. Maybe the quarterback's extending plays and you have to cover your guy for 5-6 yards. Like you can't just say a general statement of this person isn't playing good. That's not good enough. You have to look at the collective whole. And I think the defense as a collective whole is playing really, really good. Aside from there's just a handful of plays each game where, again, we touched on it earlier. There's just maybe a lack of eye discipline, a lack of focus, maybe laziness in their technique. But it's just a handful of plays. Okay. So if we can correct that, I think we would take another step to being a really top ranked and elite defense when we already are a defense that should be respected and feared across the country.
Yeah, it's that I totally agree with that. And it's going to certainly have its biggest test to date against Michigan State. I know Nebraska has a much higher ranked offense, but I feel like this is a much more complete team. However, whenever Michigan State's gone up against a defense with a pulse, it's kind of done not a lot. Now, my next question for you, and this is where we're going to end on Michigan State because this is the week that it is. I just want to ask you, when it comes to the rivalry in general, as someone who's played in it, like how nasty is it? Now, it might be weird for Michigan State, and I remember I was talking to leaving the stadium. I was talking to someone in the Michigan coaching staff about this, and they were unsure of how this will affect things. But all these transfers, they might not have the same type of vitriol that you maybe faced. But how nasty does this rivalry get when you're actually on the field? And go back to that first time that you put on that helmet, went out there and faced them. Certainly, your first couple years were not in the friendly confines of Michigan Stadium, but was it like shocking to to kind of get the taste of this rivalry the first time?
It's so, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up, around the Ohio State Michigan rivalry. So that was always the game that was big to me. So I didn't really know too much about the Michigan State Michigan rivalry, but you quickly learn about. You don't even need to wait for the first snap to understand. It's the energy in the pregame when you take the field. They're standing there waiting for you. They're saying things to you that we can't repeat on camera, and we're saying them back. And there's a literal hatred. I don't have any friends on Michigan State. There's a couple guys that I genuinely do hate, that I don't like them. I don't like them, and I know they don't like me. And that's the nature of this rivalry. And to be honest with you, it's kind of fun to play in those games if you're prepared for it. And this Michigan team is going to be prepared for it. Now, Michigan State, you grow up and you learn that, a lot of Michigan State, they sell their guys on, oh, well, Michigan didn't want you. You couldn't get into Michigan. Look at that. They didn't want, and there's this aura and this energy that gets generated where like they genuinely hate Michigan. They're starting to get talent, but now a lot of it is transfer based. They're getting guys that other schools didn't want. So it's maybe not the same in that you're getting kids from Michigan that Michigan didn't want, but you're still getting, I guess, the forgotten few of guys that are having to transfer from their school to find a home somewhere else. So there's that certain type of mindset that gets generated of you feel disrespected. And in the game of football, you really have to play with the chip on your shoulder because it's so physical and so demanding. So I expect them to come out there and do the same. Now, last year, what happened against Michigan State, the way we took the field, the way we played was unacceptable. That absolutely cannot happen. And you should always play Michigan State as hard as you can, but we owe those dudes one this year. We need to punch them. We need to bloody their lip. We need to continue to punch them. We need to bury them to their knees and shove them to the ground, man. I want to see a finishing victory. And really, like I was talking to somebody about this last night. This game means a lot to them, a lot more to the Michigan program than it does to the Michigan State program. We're having a lot of success this season. Everything's pointing in the right direction, but we have to go beat our rivals. And if we can go dominate our rivals, you're going to feel really, really good about the direction of this program. So there's a lot riding on this game. Two undefeated teams. I'm really, really excited to go out there and watch.
Now, well, I'll end on this because the interesting thing to me was the comments made by Pat Fitzgerald both before the Northwestern game and after. Before, he said last week, Michigan's going to be the toughest team that they've had to face all year. Obviously, they opened the season against Michigan State. That's who they just played Michigan, of course. And he said, hey, you know what? As advertised, and talked about the physicality, that there was no team that's more physical. That's why I feel good about this Michigan State game. Not because Cade McNamara, not because the rushing attack per se, not because of the corners. To me, we're all talking about the wrong thing to some degree. Now, yes, I think Cade McNamara, what he does is what's going to determine if Michigan wins the game or not, ultimately, because it's going to come down to a couple plays, right? 2 or 3 plays that are going to determine the game. But ultimately, Michigan's going to win or lose the game based on the trenches. And that's where I think Michigan has a superior offensive line going up against their very good front seven. It's an extremely good front seven. However, I still think Michigan's offensive line will be able to handle its job.
Yeah.
And then the defensive line, I think, is going to be able to handle its job as well against what looks to be an improved Michigan State offensive line. So
now, one thing I'm looking for, and I agree with you, but there's another phase of the game that Michigan State, their special teams, they always seem to cook up like a fake punt or a fake field goal or a blocked punt. Like those are huge momentum plays. So we went and blocked the punt this last week. You have a 90% chance of winning if you block a punt. That's a fact. That's something you touch on. So special teams, they can really make or break you. And Michigan State always seems to have some tricks up their sleeves in this game. So I agree that that's going to be the lion's share of this game and what's going to ultimately tell the story. But if we can dominate in special teams, that's going to give us a huge advantage throughout the game.
And they have one of the best special teams units in the country, both in the kicking game, punting game, and then return games. It's very daunting, that aspect. But they're going up against a unit that's also really good at covering all those things. So we'll see how that goes. Yep. All right, Jake, we are going to resume the conversation about Michigan State on Friday when we do the preview. So excited for that. But for now, X's and O's with the Mackey Award-winning tight end, Jake Butt. I'm Isaiah Hole. We'll talk to you again next week.